I was thinking about the best way to share with you all some of the art that I made over the month of August, and I was kind of thinking about like the theme, like did I have a theme this past month? And I didn't really have a theme per se, but I definitely just kind of allowed myself to explore different things that I enjoy drawing, but just hadn't given myself the space to just focus on that. And one of the things that I'm learning that I really enjoy doing is drawing fruits and vegetables. And so in in my just daily sketches and my other sketchbooks, one of the like recurring symbols and motifs are like different fruits and vegetables. So I was like, let me, I said I have this sketchbook. Let me just do one sketchbook that's solely dedicated to fruits and vegetables so I can have one place that if I want to reference it, I can potentially go back to. But it made me think about like this journey to allowing myself to just draw the things that I enjoy. And one of the artists that I listen to on YouTube, her name is Soraya. And I'll tag her in the comment section. One of the lessons from her videos that I really appreciated is, you know, seeing her images, the recurring subjects, and that she created space in her creative practice to be okay with drawing the same thing over and over again. And initially it might be like, well, why would you need to create space for yourself to do that? And I understand it's not really like and maybe it's social pressure, but there is like this push, whether it's internal or external, to kind of get better. Um, and and getting better is practicing and holding more knowledge and experience related to whatever craft that you're doing. That makes sense. But I think that there's something very well, I know there's something meditative about focusing on the same subject, the same theme, and allowing yourself to explore that. And that's what I kind of wanted to focus on for how I wanted to share the pieces that, again, that I've allowed myself to just create over the past month. And the path to getting here, to being okay with drawing fruits and vegetables and like doing that over and over again, was allowing myself, giving myself permission to reflect, giving myself the time to reflect on like, what is it about these things that keep me returning, that kind of keep me coming back to wanting to explore it. And I'm still sitting with that. I don't, outside of many of the fruits and vegetables that I pick for these drawings, especially like things like okra, potatoes, rutabagas, like things like that. Those are heavily connected to the food culture of my family. So, me drawing, I appreciate the space to just even reflect on it in that way, to make that connection. That sometimes you don't know what the reason and the purpose is, but breaking through that barrier of needing to know what the outcome is. It really is control, being able to release control over your creative practice. Like that's the journey of the creative practice, right? Is like being able to allow yourself the time to really explore things, be a squirrel, follow those like shining bouncing balls. And that it's okay if you don't know what the end of that path is going to look like, or if you decide to get off it and get onto another path. So meaning like you decide to stop focusing on a particular theme or subject, and then you move on to something else, like be okay with that. There are some lessons in, that previous subject and theme, and then there's lessons in that transition from themes and subjects to new ones, right? And so exploring that curiosity as opposed to having like a product goal or like a specific outcome is also important. And I think this is where my critique, I'll segue into my critique of the artist way. I have talked about the artist way on in a few of my videos, and in my channel description I mentioned that I am slowly building an alternative to the artist way. And so on my channel there'll be different moments where I share like critiques, and would love to hear you all's perspectives on the artist way, especially if you've gone through the book. I think it's such an interesting cult. It has like a cult following, and like in a an interesting good way. That this is a book, a practice that has transcended time. It's transcended many kind of intersections. And yeah, I want to look at the critiques, and I'm, like I said, slowly building an alternative. But my kind of check-in is related to not creating within a bubble. So connecting my some of the drawings that I've allowed myself to create over the month of August. Like I haven't been creating within a bubble. Like my nervous system is responding to my social environment. Like there are things that are coming up for me that's triggering this connection to the food culture of my family, you know. And that could be, I'm giving that as an example because that could be related to a lot of different things, like things that are actually happening within those dynamics, but then also just the things that are happening in the world, and making space for the fact that my nervous system is responding to that. And there's something comforting. Again, there's something meditative. There's something grounding. There's something consistent about sticking with the same subject and theme. I think, if we add in a spiritual layer to what I'm offering as a critique of the artist way, and the critique of the artist way in this moment is that alongside the creative practice, making space to acknowledge that we're not creating within a bubble, that we're not going through this process, just focusing on the process and nothing else is going on in our social environment, that we are creating within these social environments that are impacting our nervous systems, and that shows up in our art in a particular way, and slowing down to reflect on how that might be coming up is important. It's important to acknowledge it as opposed to bypass that, right? Because you're leaving out, or you're missing, you're bypassing a really critical connection to your creative process. Okay, so that's also coming up for me, like related to, even this time of year, like why is this theme coming up for me? Does it mean something more that I'm looking at again, like the what feels like the food culture of my family. So that's the other piece of it. One of the other creative ways that I've been exploring, like this connection to not creating within a bubble, and that there are these other things kind of going on. I started a series on my channel where, let's see, in the title it says the morning sketch. It's the morning sketch, everything I want to talk to you about, everything I want to talk about art with you. And in that series so far, what's unfolding is me documenting and then sharing my reflections on what's going on in the arts culture space right now, with how the government is becoming more and more involved, well, not becoming, is more involved in what's considered culture. And what does that mean when the government is determining, dictating what the parameters of what's considered culture, right? What does that mean? So definitely check that out. That's another way that I'm reflecting on, like, what's also coming up in my social environment. These things are impacting at the community level related to access to funding, right? And so as an artist, I'm someone that I apply for grants, local grants, related to arts and culture. And we've seen what has happened, when Reagan was in office and started funding cuts related to the arts culture world, and how that shifted even how artists were funded, shifted from like getting directly hired as an artist to being more grant funded, right? And how that has interrupted and put some different subjective parameters and requirements on access to funding. But I won't go too much into that. If that sounds like something that's your jam, definitely check out those videos, the playlist that says the morning sketch, everything I want to talk to you about art. I have two more that I'm going to put out, and we'll continue to see like what the updates are, because I've been following the art news on that. So check that out. But these are the things that I created, just a few of the things that I created over the month. I started this sketchbook and was like, let me just center one theme. And so this is what kind of organically came up. So I will see y'all on the next video.